Good afternoon. This is the second video, or the first video after the introduction. Okay, there'll be one more after this. So this is Mr. Clemmons here to talk with you. I hope you printed out your Colonial Era timeline. You've got your highlighter. You've got a pen there to add things in because we're going to move through this pretty quickly. And I'll try to do the first half of this. Again, this is the longest of the timelines that we've got. We're going basically from 1607 up to 1763. That's a lot of time to cover. So that's why I'm doing these in three. The next session that I'll do in 2 weeks will probably just be one video. But anyway, we're doing this time just to make sure that we've got time to get it down and go over everything with you. Okay? All right, so 1607, Jamestown's founded by colonists of the London Company. You want to highlight that. John Smith is captured by Native American chief Powhatan, saved from death by the chief's daughter, Pocahontas, but she doesn't paint with all the colors of the wind. That's just all a myth. That's all Disney fantasy and stuff. But it's important to know also 1609, you have the Dutch East India Company moving into Hudson River Valley up to Albany, and that's where they get there. 1609, you have native tobacco first planted and harvested in Virginia. In 1619, that's a very big year. A couple of things happen in that year. You have the first representative body in Virginia, the Virginia House of Burgesses, 22 burgesses and representing 11 plantations. Then in 1619, you also have 20 Africans brought by Dutch ships to Jamestown for sale as indentured servants, making that the beginning of slavery in colonial America. Very quickly, they become slaves. 1620, also, you have the Mayflower landing November 9th at Cape Cod, Massachusetts, with the Mayflower Compact being set up. That's very important to know as well. Also, it's very important that you keep your timing correct. 1607 is Jamestown, 1620 is the Mayflower and the Plymouth colony. Do not talk about the Plymouth colonists first and the Jamestown colonists second. That's out of chronology. Okay, so make sure you have that right. Okay, also you have 2 shiploads of unmarried women that arrive in the colony as well in that year. All right, that helps the colony survive because they can start having babies and things like that once they're married. In 1622, you have the Opich-Cano revolt of Native Americans. You got to make sure that you add that into your timeline there because it's not written down. Not 1622, Opich-Cano's revolt. Be aware of that. Then in 1630, you have a much larger migration to Massachusetts Bay. You have John Winthrop leading a Puritan migration of 900 colonists to Massachusetts Bay. He's going to serve as the first governor there. And they're a much larger group than the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims get enveloped into it, and we don't hear much about the Pilgrims except till Thanksgiving coming on board around the Civil War with Abraham Lincoln. In 1636, that's a big year. You have Harvard College founded. You have Roger Williams founding Providence in Rhode Island after he'd been banished from the colonies for a dangerous opinion calling for religious and political freedoms. In 1636, 1637, Anne Hutchinson begins to have trouble with the ministers and leaders in Massachusetts Bay. She's banished from Massachusetts Bay in 1638, moves with her family to Rhode Island, and then later to Long Island itself. Moving on up in 1651, beginning with mercantilism, you're going to have the first Navigation Act that's passed by Great Britain. In 1660, you have the monarchy restored under King Charles II after Cromwell is overthrown. In 1660, you have a second Navigation Act requiring the exclusive use of English ships for trade in the English colonies, limiting exports of tobacco and sugar and other commodities to England or its colonies. In 1663, you have the Navigation Act of 1663, also known as the Staple Act. Requires most colonists' imports must be transported to England via English ships. 1664, the Dutch colony of New Netherland becomes the English colony after Peter Stuyvesant surrenders to a British fleet there. Then 1673, you have the British Navigation Act. 1673 sets up the Office of Customs Commissioner in the colonies, collect duties on goods that comes between plantations, also known as the Plantation Agriculture Act. Then around 1675, you have the Lords of Trade that are set up to regulate mercantilism. And then 1675, 1676, you have King Philip's War. And you have that's going on in New England, also known as Metacom's War, 1675, 1676. It's very, very devastating there. 1681, you have Pennsylvania founded as William Penn, a Quaker, receives a royal charter with large land grant from King Charles II, coming to him as a debt through his dad, who had passed away, also William Penn. 1686, you have King James II begin consolidating the colonies into New England in what's called the Dominion of New England. The colonists do not like that. In 1688, Governor Andros imposes a limit of one annual town meeting in New England towns. Governor orders all militias to be placed under his control. That's important to highlight as well. Then in 1689, in England, you have the Glorious Revolution, in which James II is overthrown. He has to escape to France, and King William and Mary of Orange become king and queen of England. And they're going to throw out Governor Andros in New England there as well. Okay, 1690, you have the beginning of King William's War. This is one of the first colonial wars that the colonists are involved in with England. That's something that might come up in essays too. The colonial wars that America was involved in. So remember, King William's War, 1690 is the first one that we're really involved in a heavy kind of way. In 1692, you have the Salem witch trials, which take place. 1693, College of William and Mary is founded in Williamsburg, Virginia. And then you have the Navigation Act of 1696. And you have the Lords of Trade becoming the Board of Trade, which is more supervisorial there in 1695 and 1696. Then you're going to have, in 1702, you're going to have Queen Anne's War. England declared war on France after the death of the King of Spain, Charles II, to stop the union of France and Spain. This is also known as the War of Spanish Succession. In the colonies, it's known as Queen Anne's War. Important to know as well. Okay, 1712, the Carolina colony is officially divided into North and South Carolina. It had been a colony from the 1680s. And so it's divided from one colony into two. 1713, Queen Anne's War ends with the Treaty of Utrecht. So make sure that you highlight that as well. Okay. All right. Then moving on into 1729, Ben Franklin begins publishing the Pennsylvania Gazette, which eventually becomes the most popular colonial newspaper. And 1730, Baltimore is founded in the Maryland colony. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and stop there for now, and I'll get us back together for the second of the timeline videos today. And I'll stop that right now and cut this off, and we'll go to that and pick up with the founding of Baltimore in 1730.